Chapter 31, One Crazy Summer is called So. Although the rally was still going strong, Vanetta, Fern, and I couldn't get down into the crowd fast enough once we had spotted Cecile. We weren't the hugging type, but we were all happy. We were happy Cecile had been released from jail, and happy she was there to see us on stage reciting I Birthed a Nation. Thanks to Vanetta, now people called Cecile's poem, I Birthed a Black Nation. I had braced myself for her crazy anger at us for disturbing her poem like we disturbed her quiet, but she didn't mention one word about all the black we had thrown into her poem. In fact, Cecile just seemed different after having been locked up. She even limited her disguise to her big shades. She was feeling so good in a way that I think only I could make out, that she even gave us compliments. Vanetta got hers at my expense. Cecile said, "You see that, Delphine? You need to speak up like Vanetta. Now that's how you recite a poem." She might as well have said Vanetta was Hollywood's Black Shirley Temple. Vanetta lived on Cecile's praise for the rest of the summer and into the next year. To Fern, Cecile said, "Who said you could write a poem?" Fern said, "I didn't write it. I said it." "Shirley did," Cecile said, beating her to it, and we all laughed. What Cecile didn't say was Fern's name. Fern didn't seem to notice, but I did. I waited for Cecile to give me my share of praise. I didn't need it heaped on like my sisters did, but I knew it would be good because mine would come last. For a change, I planned to roll around in it and grin like a dummy. But then some of the organizers of the rally swarmed Sister Nazilla and little Nazilla. They fussed over Fern, telling her how brave and clever she was. The organizers had also made time for Nazilla to speak of her unjust arrest. Notice that word unjust. We've been talking a lot about it. It means unfair. But Cecile waved her opportunity away. "Y'all heard my daughters," she said, more tired than proud. "They said it all for me." Vanetta and Fern and I hugged Sister Macumbu and Sister Pat and told them that we had a great time at the People's Center summer camp. They praised our work, praised Fern's bravery, Vanetta's loud, strong voice, and my being a leader and a helper. They told Sister Nazilla all about us and that they wanted us back next year. The rest of the rally was all the speeches about Huey Newton and Bobby Hutton. Cecile said she wasn't staying for all that, even though she could have been the star of the day. She said, "Y'all can stay and run around with your friends. Tomorrow, you'll be on the plane to New York." Vanetta and Fern ran off with Janice and Beatrice. Eunice and I found a place to sit and share a bag of chips. I told her we would be flying to New York the next day. She asked if we were coming back, and I said I didn't know. I suggested we become pen pals and write each other letters once a month. That sounded okay to her. Neither of us was really a talker or a run-around player, so we just sat there. Hirohito found us sitting and jumped into a karate pose. Did you see me?" "We saw you, Hirohito," Eunice said. "It would have been better if you broke some boards like they do on TV." She demonstrated with a karate chop in a pile of airboards. He didn't really look at her. He looked at me. "Want to ride on my go-kart cart?" I didn't know how to be with Hirohito while Eunice was there. I just said no and looked at my sneakers. I felt my face growing warm. My feet were too big for a 6th grade girl. "Hirohito, you let a girl on your go-kart? Your precious go-kart?" I couldn't tell if Eunice was teasing him or mad at him. "Yeah, so? You like Delphine." I hit her on the shoulder like she was Vanetta. She didn't seem to mind. Teasing Hirohito and making me feel silly seemed to provide Eunice with enough entertainment and satisfaction. She put her hand over her mouth to gasp. "Oh, I can't believe you, Delphine. You like Hirohito. You're just as bad as Janice and your sister." This was the second time Eunice had gotten me, and both times had to do with Hirohito. I never had anyone over me like a sister or a brother, and didn't know how to answer back. I didn't want to deny it in case he liked me too, but I wasn't about to be the one to say it in words. I hadn't even said it to myself yet. Eunice wouldn't let up. She was finally enjoying herself. Hirohito Woods, I can't believe you let a girl ride on your go-kart. So I smiled without smiling like Cecile does. Besides, he could have said, I don't like her, or she's too tall, or she's too plain. He could have said what all the boys in my class said. I wouldn't like her. She was the last girl on earth. Instead, Hirohito said, so, like, okay. Like, it was okay to like Delphine. I said it too. So, Chapter 32, B11. We told Cecile everything about our excursion to San Francisco, the hippies, Chinatown. Vanetta told how the tall, blonde, white people took pictures of her like she was a movie star, which I could see Cecile didn't like one bit. Fern told how she saw Crazy Calvin with two policemen just before the bus rounded onto the Bay Bridge. She gave us an earful about how Kelvin always said racist pigs, but he let the policeman pat him on the back like he was the policeman's dog. And then to that, Cecile said, if you can see that, then you'll write poems, all right. We asked her about being arrested and being a political prisoner and a freedom fighter. Cecile made it sound like it was no big deal. I've been fighting for freedom all my life. But she wasn't talking about protest signs or standing up to demand or knowing your rights. She was talking about her life. Just her, not the people. Vanetta, wanting more compliments, said we put everything back just the way you like it, talking about Cecile's workplace, the kitchen. I didn't expect gushing, but it would have been nice if she had given us more than the nod. We packed all the things except for the clothes we'd wear in the morning. It was hard to believe that 4 weeks had passed by so quickly. When Vanetta and Fern had gone to bed, I went into the kitchen to find Cecile hunched over at her printer. Pieces of the machine lay out on the table. She had the screwdriver in her hand, putting it all back together herself. Although I didn't hear the door swing when I pushed it, she had and knew I was there. I called your father when I got out, she told me without looking up. Delphine, why didn't you tell him what happened? I stood there surprised, shocked. Didn't enter my mind that she would have wanted me to call Papa. We thought you were coming right back. She kept screwing in one of the rollers, still not looking at me directly. I counted on you to call him. Tell him what happened. I at least thought you'd figure that out. You're the oldest, Delphine, the smart one. She had just told me I was smart and a disappointment, reminding me that she hadn't said one nice thing to me. Not one. Papa would have made us come back to Brooklyn. He would have been mad because I didn't do what he said. Look out for Vanetta and Fern. And then Big Ma wouldn't let a day pass without telling me for the rest of my life how you are nothing but Delphine. You let 7 days pass without calling your father. 7 days. That would have been looking out for Vanetta and Afua. You shouldn't have taken this all on yourself. You didn't have nothing to do with the police arresting me. I didn't have nothing to do with the police arresting me. They came. They arrested me along with the two Panthers they really wanted. And Lewis's mother's going to say what she's going to say. That's just how it is. All you had to do was call your father. That was all. My eyes stung. I was spilling over mad. I couldn't stop what I had to say. Even if she stood over me and became my crazy mother mountain and knocked me down, I was spilling over. I'm only 11 years old, and I do everything. I have to because you're not there to do it. I'm only 11 years old, but I do the best I can. I don't just up and leave. I was still on 2 feet. There was no sting in my jaw. My backside had not been touched, but I was ready for it. I closed my eyes because I figured the slap wouldn't sting as much when it did come. Instead, I heard metal on metal. I opened my eyes. The sounds I heard were the screwdriver missing the groove, hitting the printer's metal innards. She laid the screwdriver on the table. I had nowhere to go, but I wanted to disappear. Finally, she nodded to the floor and said, sit. I did what she told me. There was a lot of silence, but then she spoke. It was just me and my mother until I was 11. I wasn't used to having her attention, having her look at me and talk. All the while she spoke, she didn't lift her eyes from me. A car hit her and she was gone. That was it. My aunt took me in to clean her house, watch her kids. I slept on a blanket on the floor in the kids' room for 5 years. I was 16 when she announced she was getting married. She said it wasn't good for a big gal like me to be in her house, seeing as she had a husband. She said in the long run she was doing me a favor. Then my mother's sister made me a sandwich I couldn't eat, gave me $20, and put me out. I slept in the subways at night. During the daytime, I read Homer and Langston Hughes in libraries. I tried to hide in the stacks, but they always found me and shooed me out. When I didn't have 15 cents for the subway, I slept on park benches, wherever I could hide myself. Delphine, it's a hard thing to sleep on the streets. A hard thing for a grown man. A harder thing for a teenage girl, no matter how big and tall she is. At night, I talked to myself to stay awake. I said the poems of Homer and Langston Hughes. I liked the words. They comforted me. Their rhymes, their beats, they made a place for me. They kept me strong. But I was always hungry and I had gotten sick. Your father found me on a park bench. He and his brother had a nice apartment on Herkimer Street. They fed me, gave me a bed to sleep on. I hadn't slept on a bed since I was 11 years old and my mother was alive. Louis never bothered me. He didn't ask me to do much but cook, sweep, wash his clothes. She paused. I had you the next year, 6 years from where you are now. So just keep in mind, 17. I had Vanetta next. Both times his mother came up from Alabama and delivered you and Vanetta in that apartment. She and I couldn't get along, so she always went back south. Then I had the last one. That little one wanted out so bad enough to come when she wanted to come, early and fast. She was born on a Friday. All I could do was lie on the kitchen floor and let her come. She stopped for a minute and said, "You were there when she came." I was? I was down on the floor. You stroked my hair like I was a doll, but you didn't have any dolls, no toys. You said, "Don't cry, Mama, don't cry." I think that's the first time I really heard you speak, but when she came out of me, you didn't say a word. You just took the dish towel hanging off the icebox handle and wiped off your sister. I could hardly breathe. Then Darnell walked in from school. He did everything else needed to be done. Why couldn't I remember seeing Fern being born? Telling my mother not to cry, wiping Fern off with a dish towel? Where were those flashes of memory? Your life seems hard, Delphine, but it is good. It's better than what I could have given you. Here was my mother telling me her life, who she was, how she came to be Cecile. Answering questions I'd stored in my head from the time I realized she would not come back. Here she was telling me more than I could remember, understand, picture. Maybe I was too young to really take hold of it all. But for what seemed the first time in forever, I could think about was my own self, what I lost, what I missed, that no one said good, Delphine. No one ever said thank you. Even after telling me all this, I was still mad. Maybe I'd been mad all along, but I just didn't have time to be it. Mad. Is it true what Big Ma says, that you left because you couldn't name Fern? I took her silence as a yes. For a while she said nothing, so I guess she was done talking. I started to get up. Then she said, "I could have taken you with me and left the other two. You have my mother's face. You didn't cry. You didn't want much. You didn't talk, but you understood. But I didn't have a penny in my pocket. I just knew I had to go. So I gave Vanetta a cookie. That's all she wanted anyway. I gave the baby milk and the picture flashed before me as it had many, many times. Put the doll baby in with a fua. The doll I asked Darnell to go to the store and get. I told you to be good and wait for Papa. And then I left. She told me everything I wanted to know and too much. It was too much. I'd have to take it out one piece at a time and look at it. She said, "Did I leave because of a name?" You'd have to be grown first before I explained. If I told you, it would just be words. She picked up her screwdriver and went back to working on her printer. Be 11, Delphine. Be 11 while you can. That was it. In the middle of the night, I woke up. A fua? So Cecile called Fern by a different name. We'll check back in about the next chapter later. This was chapter 30 and 31.